Dr. Jennifer Reed, who is an administrator at the University of South Carolina, and it is so good to be traveling with her and my number 3 daughter, Angela. Angela came to me several weeks ago and said to me, she said, Dad, I think I want to get politically active this year. I want to work on a campaign. Well, I kind of felt that she was talking about my campaign. And I said to her that Angela, it would be great to have you working on the campaign. I need all the help I can get. She's a wrong James. She made it known to me that she was interested in working for James Smith. And I told her that I had no problems with that. And so today, I've done something that I have not done since maybe the first year I ran for Congress over 25 years ago, and that is travel throughout the state, just resting district, with 2 of my 3 daughters. I've been with them all day. And I cannot wait to get back to Columbia and get rid of them. But I don't want to do that. They are the mothers of my 4 grandchildren. Jennifer has a boy and a girl. I should say a young man and a young lady, 23 and 21 years old. And Angela has a boy and a girl. I can't remember how old they are, but I think they're 4 and 2.
Girl is 6 years old.
6.
Boy is 2.
6 and 2. I've always been bad in math, but I know history pretty well. And having studied history, having taught history, I know a little bit about the historical significance of this campaign that we are undertaking this year. When I was teaching in Charleston, where Walter Mitchell is from, to see him, many of you remember Mitch. It's still not good to see him. I was glad to see him. When I get back, I'll tell Emily, I saw your guy today because he came over with his little Cadillac there and asked me about Emily. I said, she's walking around with the same kind of Cadillac you walking around with. But we go way back to his high school days. I was teaching down in Charleston. He was still in high school. And my students used to ask me, why was it that we needed to spend all this time studying about things that happened way back yonder? And I would always say to them, we study it because history ought to teach us something. And the one lesson that you get from history, in my opinion, is that anything that's happened before can happen again. We in South Carolina have done a pretty good job of overcoming our past history. But as in any case, sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes mistakes are made. Sometimes, in spite of our forward steps, we sometimes take backwards steps. And we know from watching television, listening to the radio, reading the newspapers, we know that our country and our state has taken some backward steps here lately. And I tell folks as I travel around the country And they ask me, what are we going to do? And I say to them all the time that the first thing we have to remember is that our country does not move on a linear plane. A lot of people seem to feel that as we march down through history, we go from point A to point B, point C, ad infinitum. The fact of the matter is, this country has always moved like a pendulum on a clock. Left, right, back, left, back, right. This country has always moved that way. And what we have to keep in mind is that this country will go too far left or too far right when we fail to participate in the process. We are a check on how far this country will go in any direction. And I also say to people, we have to remember, when the country is going from left to the right, it passes through the center. When it goes from right back left, it passes through the center. This country always spends more time, twice as much time in the center as it does to the left or the right. We know that in 2008, this country went left, and we elected Barack Obama. And the people who thought that he was too much, they went to work. And by 2010, they started moving the country back to the right. In 2016, this country moved way to the right. And those of us who know that this country has gone too far right, it's up to us to move it back to the center. And that's what we got to do. If we fail to do our part in moving this country back, we will sentence our children and our grandchildren to an existence that all of us thought was behind us. The past can be prologue. And let's just keep that in mind this year. And so I'm pleased to be here tonight to introduce really two people. One of whom is an African-American young woman who is running for state treasurer. She got through the noon filing day without opposition in the Democratic primary. Rosalind Glenn. Stand up for her. Now that's what's got Jennifer out here. She ain't out here for me either. She out here for Ross. Angela out here for James Smith. I'm just out here on my own. Rick and Larry, about all I got. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes you just have to be alone. Is the sheriff still here? Well, tell him don't go far. Don't know when I might need him. But my main job tonight is to present a young man. A young man who I have known since he was a tot. His mother, a corporate lawyer in Columbia. His father was president of CNS Bank of Columbia when I served on the board. His dad was one of my biggest supporters when I ran for Secretary of State back in 1978. Someone asked me, are you taking sides in the primary? And you running yourself? I said, yeah. Because if you cannot stay loyal to your friends, You ought not be in this business. His daddy didn't have to be on my finance committee. When I was running back in 1978 statewide, nobody thought that anybody that looked like me ought to be running for state office. Least most supporting the candidacy. His parents supported me then, and I'm going to return the favor this year. But I support him not solely because of his parents. I know a lot of people who got parents who I ain't gonna support. So I ain't support him just because he had parents. I'm supporting him because, as we used to say when I started in this business years ago, the best way to tell what a person will do is look at what he or she or her has done. And when I look at Jim Smith's record, all across the board, just look at the legislation that he has advocated for in the legislature. Just look at how he has conducted himself in this campaign. Like I said to him one time, I said, Jim, you know, you too manable. Sometimes you just got to get down and dirty. Just got to tell people. Show them your emotions sometimes. But he is the kind of guy that all of us can be proud of. Now, I know I've been messing up his speeches all day today. But I got to tell you one little story. I'll let him complete it. But just imagine a young man born into relative privilege, didn't have to worry about growing up like many of us grew up. Yet, he gets elected to the legislature. He finishes law school and becomes a commissioner, get a commission in the National Guard. But he sees his country come under attack, as so many of us saw back in 9/11. If my memory serves, 2001. Now, a lot of us saw that, and in our own way, we prayed. We held out hope. I'm sure he prayed, and he held out hope. But he also knew something my daddy used to say. He was a minister. He used to pastor right here in Orangeburg, down on the Treadwells. My dad used to say, oh, son, you pray every day for good health and strength. And the good Lord gives you a modicum of good health and strength. You get up and you work like Hades. So James prayed and he held out hope. But he went steps further. He resigned his commission. He left the legislature and went and enlisted in the United States Army and went to boot training. And what is so monumental about that, he was 37 years old when he did it. Imagine leaving the legislature, resigning an officer's commission, and enlisting as his boot camp at 37 years old. Why would he do that? Because there's a certain commitment that he has to the country. As I say, you can best tell what a person will do by looking at what he or she has done. That's why I'm supporting this young man who ain't all that young anymore. That's why I'm supporting him, because he has shown what he's made of, and what he's made of is what many of you are made of, and that is a commitment to do for others as you would have them do for you. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congressman. What an honor, again, it is to be together. My friends in Orangeburg County, who is ready to win an election, right? As I like to say, I didn't get all dressed up for nothing. Congressman Clyburn, you have been an inspiration to me, and since I grew the first even remote consciousness of serving others and being part of a brighter future for our communities and our state. And I do remember those days and remember the impact that you had on my family and our relationships go way back, and I'm very grateful for that. And you set the standard, what it means to serve in a selfless way, to serve others in a total commitment. And I know how often, and I've said it many times, as I watch the news on TV and then we see our congressman, and I can't help but say thank God for Jim Clyburn. But it is a wonderful opportunity to be with you all this evening. I'll tell you in response to some of that story that was shared by the congressman that when it comes to career advice in the military, don't ask me. I can't give you much good, because it was one of those moments, and I have to tell you, I can't wait for you if you have not had a chance to meet my wife, Kirkland. She's from Charleston. She's my high school sweetheart. We dated when we were teenagers, and 7.5 years later, she agreed to marry me. I called her at a weak moment and signed her up. But she's a brilliantly talented artist, and anything that we do, if it is ever the right thing to do, it's what we do, either decide together or what was her decision on her own. If it's ever something that is messed up or fails, I did that all by myself. The good news is, running for governor, we have decided on that together. And this is another mission for our family, much like going back to basic training at 37. And at the time we had 4 children, and it was an extra, bit of duty and responsibility for her, for me to just be gone. I mean, 13 many weeks of basic training, then there's OCS, and that was on and off for about 18 months. And then infantry officer basic course and Fort Benning, which was another, 12, 13 weeks. And then, oh, by the way, you get orders right after that for 16 months to Afghanistan. And I remember trying to tell my 5-year-old son, because I wanted him to know a little bit about that his dad was going to be gone. And he, 5 years old, what does 16 months mean? And I remember this was literally right when we were about to leave, and we were talking, and I said, only way I could begin to explain it, and I said, well, Paul, you're 5 now, and your dad will be home when you're 7. But I knew this was not just unique to me and my family, that there were thousands of families all across our state that were doing the same thing. It is not really unique to me. This call to service. Thank God that there are so many across our state and across our nation who are willing to make that type of commitment. And that it is not just their commitment and sacrifice. It is a commitment of families, it's a commitment of communities, and it lists the values that we have as South Carolinians. So when I showed up to basic training at 37, and my drill sergeants took one look at me, they figured I must have failed in life and everything and had to go to basic training at 37. And they wanted me out of their army that day. I'll never forget, there was me and one other for a recruit who got just run like crazy. What they call bag drills, which you take our duffel bags and put them up over our heads, and we're doing this running in place, and they just try to, as they used to tell me, they said, don't worry, you'll pass out before you die. Keep going. And it went on and on. I'll never forget the guy across from me, he was getting it pretty bad. His talcum powder broke in his bag, and it came all over his face as he's sweating, and it just looked so funny. I couldn't help it. So the worst thing I could do was start laughing, so I got more attention from the drill sergeant, and that went on for another hour or so. But they tried to get me out of their army that day, but I had no quit in me. And they didn't know that just a couple days ago, I was in the State House, serving for and with District 72, and working with an education governor, Jim Hodges. And just then we had passed something called First Steps to School Readiness, right? And delivered on a promise on quality early child and care for our kids all across our state so that they rise at first grade healthy and ready to learn. It was an important step in the right direction. And it was delivered by a Democratic governor who said education's a priority. And so a week later or so, I'm cleaning latrines with 17, 18, 19-year-old young people, giving everything they got, thinking, oh, what did I do? And 2 weeks before graduation, my anonymity was blown. My drill sergeant went home and was ruined his chicken dinner that night because apparently there was a news story about me being at basic training. I just happened to be in his company in his platoon. So he was all fired up, showing up the next morning. And I had no idea. We're all, as we say, towing the bunk. We worked all night to get it right. But I told these recruits, and they ain't never gonna be right because they're preparing you for the challenges ahead. And sure enough, he comes in and just says, Smith, push. It's like, yes, drill sergeant, that means I'm on the ground doing push-ups. I didn't know why, but I found out. He said, Smith, I got home last night and you ruined my chicken dinner. You were all over the TV. More flutter kicks, Smith, so he rolls me over. I'm doing flutter kicks. And it goes on for a while. And finally, he apparently got the whole story. Because at the very end, after a good number of minutes of being smoked, as we called it, he comes up to me and says, Smith, I can't believe it. You mean I can smoke a lawyer, a former officer, and a politician all at the same time? I said, you was drill sergeant's dream, Smith. But I got through with prayer and a lot of support from my fellow recruits, and went on to serve overseas and have one of the greatest and most remarkable experiences of my life, which was leading American soldiers in combat in a land far, far away from here. And the kind of commitment that you have to each other. I tell you, we have some veterans in here. Any veterans, raise your hands. Let's give all the veterans a big round of applause. Thank you all. It is that commitment, total commitment to each other's success, that you know that you're going to do everything you have to make sure that they're successful and are focused on what they need to be successful, and they're going to do the same for you. I believe those types of values, that type of commitment we need in the governor's office. And it'll go, and I'll take that. I'll take that to our education. It couldn't be clearer, right? We got a governor who thinks the solutions for our schools is to arm our teachers. No. I'm going to arm our teachers with better pay because they deserve it, right? I'm going to lower class sizes and make sure that they can have a relationship with each child in their classroom. I'm going to lift the importance and status of our teachers by providing the professionalism and the training that they deserve. We're going to redo the testing so that they can actually have the freedom to teach in their classrooms, right? And I know this in my soul, that all of our kids, whether they're in Chester or Charleston or Greenville or Greeleyville or anywhere, they can learn. We give them the tools and support, and if we have an education governor who's fighting for them every day, they're going to do very well. We know that, right? And we also have to deliver on the commitment to fund our schools in an equitable fashion, right? I mean, none of us, we didn't need the Supreme Court to tell us that the legislature was failing to meet their constitutional obligation to fund our schools adequately. We know that. But the Supreme Court has told us, and the governors that we have done nothing to lead us in the right direction. Well, there is a way forward, and there's a plan to build a statewide millage rate to begin turning this battleship in the right direction. And it won't happen overnight. But I know how to get us to funding equity, and it's gonna take some time, but it's all about setting the course in the right direction. And I know how to do that, and we're gonna do that together. Some other areas that I know are so important, and we have so much to be thankful for Congressman Clyburn, and I know this is so critical. When our President Obama passed the ACA, he delivered on a huge promise to provide more access to health care for citizens all across our country. And many states made the right decision, the responsible decision to expand Medicaid and increase access to health care for our citizens. Well, unfortunately, South Carolina has not done that. And it's all up to one person, whomever is the governor, to make that decision. I know this. It'll just take a stroke of my pen, and I'll deliver it. But it's going to take everyone in this room to get me elected. And when we do so, we're going to deliver on a promise to fund preventative care, to make sure we establish relationships with physicians and those that are having access to and coverage, and we establish those relationships, and we're going to build a healthier South Carolina in the future because it's the right thing to do. We're also going to make sure that we have a governor who not only listens to our youth, that they have a voice, but is going to stand with them, right? As I did this last Saturday at the March for Our Lives in Columbia and all across our country. What a powerful statement. It wasn't just a moment. This is a movement, which is going to take, right? It's going to take us where we need to go. And so I was so proud to be there and very humbled that they would ask me to speak that day, on their day. And I'll tell you this, as governor, I will be there to support them at every step, because they ought to know that they are safe in their schools, and that we have responsible, common sense gun safety reforms that are going to be led, that are going to make our community safer and our schools safer. I'll tell you this, I've been in places where everyone's armed to the teeth. They all have weapons. And I promise you don't feel safer. It doesn't happen that way. And really, when you look at history, talk about history lessons, Dodge City, Wild West, they actually had some of the strictest gun safety requirements. As soon as you got to the city line, you had to turn in your weapon. And why was that? It was about building community. It was about building commerce, because people didn't like to go out to restaurants when everybody's armed and carrying a sidearm. It's about building the community we all want for ourselves, where we know that we're safe and we have opportunities. And we're going to deliver that. I want to share with you a little bit about our energy future. This week, one of the things I think I'll be able to bring as governor is the 22 years of service in the State House, of actually getting things done. And having the opportunity of building, bipartisan coalitions to move our state forward, much like we did with First House, much like we did with expanding early childhood through our full-day 5-year-old kindergarten and expansion of 4-year-old kindergarten opportunities, and delivering on so many other areas. But one area we've got to move forward for all of us is in energy. It is about the bills we pay, which are far too much than they should be. I remember, just in my service, I remember when South Carolina had some of the lowest rates in the country, and we used to be able to attract business because our power rates were low. Well, that's not the case anymore. Apparently, we're third only to Nantucket and Maui. So, obviously, we ain't those places, and we sure shouldn't pay those kind of rates, right? Well, the way to get there, I think, is this. One, I'm going to deliver on a independent consumer advocate that's going to be there to fight for all of us. It's tied to a statewide office holder. So we know when it goes wrong, there's accountability. The people have a say. The government is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and working for us again. I'm also going to elevate the energy office and make it part of the cabinet, and we're going to carve our own energy future. And it's going to be not what an industry says that we need is in our best interest. It's going to be what the people of South Carolina say it knows is in our best interest. And so I'm going to have a plan that's going to deliver on renewable energy and solar power. And we're very close to it. It's on the floor of the House this next week. And watch for that debate, because it'll be a real telling debate. You'll have those defending the status quo pushing another bill that's going to end the solar industry in our state and lose immediately 3,000 jobs. My bill will lift the cap and deliver thousands of new jobs and billions of new investments. It's about the future. It's about the future we all want, and the opportunities should be here. You go across the border. You go to North Carolina, you see it all over the place. Solar panels everywhere. Georgia, same. I think we're about 200 megawatts, or almost 300 megawatts of solar power in South Carolina. Just a few years ago, we were at 4 megawatts. North Carolina, there are 8,000. Right? That opportunity, those low-cost alternatives should be here in South Carolina. Because you know what? The sun shines just as bright here as it does there. So, all of these things we can do, and more. The opportunity is there. We saw it. Said it couldn't happen in Alabama, but it did. Said it wasn't going to happen in Virginia. Not only did they elect a governor, but they elected many House districts. And I want to tell you right now, today was the close of filing, as many of you know. Yes. Right? And we have the largest numbers of Democrats running for the South Carolina House, I think, ever. And that just tells you where we're headed. And what we all have to do. Because it's just not going to happen by itself. We're not going to be the next Pennsylvania. You know, they turned a 20-point victory for Trump into a 20-point plus victory for Conor Lamb. We can do it with 6 points in South Carolina. So let's do this. My name's James Smith. I thank you all very much. God bless you.